Erick Erickson is a right-wing pundit, and he's pretty much accepted in mainstream media. He's oftentimes on mainstream media. And he had a gig at CNN as a contributor. And, in fact, he was just on Meet the Press in October. So, it's not even like he's on the fringe or on the bubble of being accepted by the mainstream. No, he just is. He is in the mainstream. Certainly more than me. I've been on Fox News, 2 times? And that's my extent of being on mainstream media. So for a guy like him, well above and beyond what a guy like me has experienced in terms of being exposed to the mainstream. Well, he even got a glowing profile in the New Yorker, and this is a problem that many people have pointed out, that you have these people who are pretty odious, but they get these glowing profiles because in the age of Trump, mainstream media tries to almost, I don't want to say glorify because that's too strong a word, but they want to give insight into a growing right-wing movement. And so you've seen these profiles of sometimes literal neo-Nazis in the Midwest. I've seen many profiles in nominally liberal outlets covering Richard Spencer. And, the point I always make is there's been dozens of those kinds of profiles done, of a Trump voter in the Midwest and things of that nature. How many times have I, or Cenk Uygur, or Shoykat Chakrabarti, or Zach Exley, the founders of Justice Democrats, how many of us have gotten glowing individual profiles in these different mainstream media outlets? None of us have. We haven't been selected to talk about, oh my goodness, it turns out that these left-wing groups won 41% of their primaries, and now you have 13 candidates backed by these groups, Our Revolution, Justice Democrats, DSA, PCCC, that you guys made it to Washington. In one election cycle, these groups didn't exist. Now we exist, and we got 13 people in Washington, D.C., and we're moving the party left, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez knocked off Joe Crowley. We've had no exposure to the mainstream because mainstream media views right-wing activism as inherently sexy and edgy, whereas left-wing activism is boring. Left-wing activism, they're out there trying to make sure people get health care. Yawn. Give me somebody who believes in an ethno-state and who wears a suit at the same time. Ooh, interesting. So this is the media landscape that we're dealing with. In an attempt to not look like they have a liberal bias, they almost go out of their way to be kind to the right. So it's weird how, in reality, the manifestation of that accusation of having a liberal bias leads them to do the opposite. And they never give actual fair coverage to the left. How many glowing profiles, how many articles have you seen going, oh, is Bernie going to run in 2020? Oh! And with positive coverage in there. They don't have those articles. Whereas I've seen countless... There was one on John Kerry the other day, who lost in 2004 to George W. Bush. Are you fucking kidding me? They're saying he might run. Huh? Beto O'Rourke might run. Huh? Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Hillary Clinton. They just try to shove on you all the establishment types, left-wing activists, nothing. Well, now, in a weird way, the chickens are coming home to roost. They'll never acknowledge it. They'll never admit it. He'll still be invited on these mainstream shows. But take a look at who Erick Erickson really is. Now, he's nominally anti-Trump. So that's one of the reasons why he got those glowing profiles, because he's, somebody on the right who doesn't like Trump. What a hero. What a serious thinker. Here's what he said on Twitter. The U.S. spent $618 million in Guatemala, Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, and Mexico. We could double that, and it'd still be 11% of the cost of the wall. And we could deploy the money to find and prop up the next generation of Pinochet types. He continues, these countries are corrupt. We will not exterminate that corruption, but let's not pretend we should let corrupt autocrats thrive who work against our hemispheric interests and cause refugee caravans to approach our borders. Support strong leaders who will force through free market reforms and promote economic stability, even if with a heavy hand. And then somebody responds to him and says, I think there may be some holes in this plan, to which Erick Erickson responds, I'm hoping for some helicopters in this plan. What does that mean? I'm hoping for helicopters? Well, Pinochet was notorious for murdering his political opponents by throwing them out of helicopters. So, to give you some more information on Pinochet, this is what Think Progress explains. Augusto Pinochet was a murderous dictator who ruled Chile from 1973 to 1990. After taking power in a CIA-backed military coup from the democratically elected socialist Salvador Allende, anyone who opposed Pinochet was either murdered, tortured, exiled, or, in at least 120 cases, thrown out of helicopters into the sea. Pinochet's intelligence services also assassinated Orlando Letelier, I'm never going to get that right, a former Chilean diplomat, and 2 other bystanders with a car bomb in 1976 in Washington, D.C. All of this is fine in the far right's eyes, however, because Pinochet also instituted free market economic reforms. So, this is just so you know, it's educational. The next time you hear anybody who's on the far right, anybody who's in the establishment, talk about how, oh my goodness, we believe in freedom, and we believe in democracy, and we believe in human rights. Because I guarantee you, Erick Erickson will be cheerleading our next war, our next intervention against some tin pot dictator. Now you know it never had anything to do with a principled belief in freedom and democracy. Because he's telling you up front, I love Pinochet. Remember when you overthrew the democratically elected socialist Salvador Allende? I know he was democratically elected, but I don't care about democracy. I'd rather have the authoritarian guy who murders his political opponents, tortures people, and do the policies I want in terms of a free market. So this is what he believes. He's telling you, believe him. He's telling you, believe him. So now we come full circle to the original point. Mainstream media has had this guy on for years. He's had glowing profiles in the New Yorker, a so-called liberal outlet. And this is who he really is. He believes authoritarian leaders, fascists, dictators are awesome. And he believes murdering your political opponents are awesome. So ask yourself, what kind of a system allows and even promotes loathsome clowns like Erick Erickson while actively downplaying social democrats, people on the populist left? A broken system, a shitty system, a corrupted system. And I think that's clear.